This story is called A New Home. The two young faces looking out of their front room window looked very sad. It seemed the sky had disappeared, and in its place were heavy grey and black clouds racing across rooftops, chased by strong winds and driving rain. "I'm bored, complained Leo. He said it at least 20 times to make sure everybody knew how he felt. His sister Felicity, leaning on the windowsill, felt exactly the same. "Why don't you get your cars out, Leo, and make a racetrack?" suggested his mother. She was at her wits' end, not knowing what to recommend. The children had looked at the TV. They had done jigsaw puzzles. Felicity had read her favourite book, and Leo had been allowed to play with his father's iPad. But now they wanted to do something different. Leo and Felicity were very good children, and usually knew how to entertain themselves. Leo was 6 years old, and had lots and lots of energy. What he liked doing best was kicking a football, but there was a problem. Their house only had a very small garden, and the nearest park was at least 15 minutes away. Leo thought he could cut this down to 5 minutes if only his mother would let him ride his bike. But this she never allowed unless someone was with him. "I'm sorry, Leo, I'm not letting you out on your own. There are some very strange people in this town, and they're not always nice to small boys. Wait until the weekend when Daddy is home, then he can take you out." The trouble with that idea was that Leo's daddy was usually too busy at the weekend, either doing jobs like decorating, helping with the shopping, or visiting his parents to see if they were all right. Leo's mother was called Mrs. Sutcliffe, and the town she was talking about was London. In fact, London was not really a town. Rather, it was a big, big city. Some people liked it because it had interesting shops, museums, cinemas, and even a zoo in Regent's Park. Other people liked it because that's where they went to work in offices. That is what Mr. Sutcliffe did. He had a very important job in the centre of London and earned lots and lots of money. Of course, he had to work very hard to do this, and during the week often came home very late. Felicity was a bit older than Leo. She was 8 and quite tall for her age. Slender, with dark brown eyes and long hair the colour of summer wheat, she was a very pretty girl. She also had a vivid imagination. Her books were often about magic, fairies, princes, princesses, and far-off places where the sun always shone. Felicity didn't like London, and the best thing that happened each year was when the whole family went to stay with her mother's parents. These were Felicity's and Leo's grandma and grandpa MacDonald, who lived in Hampshire. Their house was in the middle of the countryside, where there were fields, woods, farms, and rivers. So, on rainy days in London, or when it was too cold to go outside, Felicity dreamed of country lanes, green pastures, cows, and noisy rooks in the tops of trees. There was something else. Horses. Felicity thought the best thing in the world would be to have a horse, or, at the very least, to borrow one so that she could ride it whenever she liked. It didn't have to be a big horse. Indeed, it might be best to have a pony, because a horse might be too big. Well, the rain didn't stop pouring, and it looked as if it was settling in to stay for a few days. Leo continued to moan and moan about being bored until his mother finally got annoyed and said, "Oh, stop it, Leo. I can't make the rain stop. You'll just have to be patient." Leo was not good at being patient, and suddenly got very sulky. He turned round, ran up the stairs as fast as he could, shot into his bedroom, slammed the door, and jumped into bed where his teddy was waiting for a long overdue cuddle. Mrs. Sutcliffe didn't see Leo until tea time, when he finally came downstairs because he was hungry. During the time Leo was in his bedroom, Mrs. Sutcliffe had started to think. She thought about the time when she was a little girl living with her parents in Hampshire. It was a happy time where there was always something to do outside in the fresh air. She collected flowers for her bedroom, put tadpoles in a large jar to see them grow into frogs, collected eggs from her parents' chickens, and climbed trees so that she could look out and see the whole world. There was hardly a house in sight, just trees and fields, lots of fields, green, yellow and brown, as far as the eye could see. When Mr. Sutcliffe came home that evening, and almost before he had put his briefcase down and taken off his coat, Mrs. Sutcliffe blurted out excitedly, "We've got to move." "What do you mean we've got to move?" Mr. Sutcliffe reacted, looking rather surprised. "I want to go back to Hampshire," she said. "London may be all right for grown-ups, but I don't think it's good for young children. I want Leo and Felicity to enjoy what I once had, the countryside. I know they'd love it. It would be much healthier for them, and they would learn lots and lots from all their adventures and the things they would discover." We'll think about it," said Mr. Sutcliffe as he went off to get his slippers and to pour himself a small glass of red wine. Well, Mr. Sutcliffe did think about it. The idea started as a small thought in his head, but then it grew, and it grew, and it grew, until finally it burst out. "We'll do it!" he suddenly exclaimed. "Do what?" asked Mrs. Sutcliffe, looking rather confused. "We're going to move. It's a brilliant idea. Let's see if we can get a place near your mum and dad in Hampshire. Although our house here is quite small, I think we'll get enough money for it to buy a nice place in the countryside. Why don't you ask your mum and dad to keep a lookout and see if they can find somewhere for us?" Mrs. Sutcliffe was very excited and phoned Granny and Grandpa MacDonald immediately. Then she had a thought. "Steve," she said, because that was Mr. Sutcliffe's name, "do you think we should tell the children?" "Why not let it be a surprise? We both know they would jump at the idea. Let's make sure we can get a place first." So Mr. and Mrs. Sutcliffe kept it as a special secret. One day, 3 weeks later, Mrs. Sutcliffe got a telephone call from Granny MacDonald. "Sally," because that was Mrs. Sutcliffe's name, "I think we've found a place for you. It's called Heatherfield Farm. Well, it's not a farm anymore, just a home. We've been round it, and it's lovely." That weekend, Mr. and Mrs. Sutcliffe decided to go and look at the old farmhouse. They got in the family car with Leo and Felicity sitting in the back seats. Neither of the children knew where they were going, and when they asked, their parents just smiled and said, "Wait and see." After 2.5 hours, the car was driving along country lanes. "It's beautiful here," said Felicity. "Are we going on holiday?" asked Leo, desperate to know what the plan was. Leo's parents didn't give him an answer. Well, at least not until they stopped outside a lovely old house, hidden amongst trees, with bushes brushing against brick walls, and a cascade of pink roses surrounding the front porch. "We're going to take a look at this old farmhouse," Mrs. Sutcliffe said to the children. Felicity knew immediately what was happening. "You want to buy it, don't you?" she almost shrieked. She had never been so excited in all her life. Then Leo joined in. "Cool," was all he could say, as he looked wide-eyed and in wonder at what might be his new home. Well, we all know what happened next. The whole Sutcliffe family fell in love with the old farmhouse. The rooms were quite large and well decorated. The kitchen was huge, there were bedrooms for everyone, and, best of all, the garden was immense. In fact, it wasn't really a garden. It was more the size of a long field. It had 2 outbuildings where the farmer once kept his tools, animals, and a tractor. There was a big greenhouse for growing new plants, and a lawn stretched out from the dining room window with flower beds on either side. Beyond these was a big plot for growing vegetables, but after that the garden became increasingly wild, with grasses growing tall, and a very large pond with reeds and a small island where ducks and a moorhen sheltered. Then came a small orchard with apple, pear, cherry and nut trees. Finally, it all became very dark and mysterious. An enormous oak tree guarded the entrance to a small forest where pathways were concealed by mosses and dry leaves. "Now, you two, don't get your hopes up too high. We've got to see if we can get the place first," Steve Sutcliffe cautioned his children. During the next 4 months, everyone was very nervous, hoping they could sell their London home and buy the farmhouse. They need not have worried. Everything happened just as they hoped, so that one day, in very early spring, as crocuses and daffodils had started to flower in gardens, parks and the countryside, the Sutcliffe family said goodbye to their old house and got into the car, leading the way for a large removals van to take them to their new home, Heatherfield Farm.